Here with me now is House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I want to start with what you released this past week, a list of 10 proposed reforms, including but not limited to a mandate for judicial warrants to search private property and a ban on masks, also a mandate for agents to wear body cameras. Now, Republicans say they are open to some of these, but others, especially the specifics on judicial warrants, are non-starters. Only 5 days now until the Department of Homeland Security will shut down. Are you willing to accept anything less than this full list of demands?
Not at this point. We start with a basic premise that taxpayer dollars should be used to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, not brutalize or kill American citizens like Renee Nicole Good or Alex Preddy. We know that ICE is completely and totally out of control. They've gone way too far, and the American people want them reined in.
Guys, thanks so much for joining me. John Soto, this is SotoCast. Hakeem Jeffries, he's one of the best. One of the best. One of the greatest minds in political, I don't know. He's just fantastic, isn't he? It's so funny how he tries so hard. It's that old school, pattern and movement and the way the speech flows and stops and pauses. And he's just trying so hard just to be, he's like a Timu Obama. That's what I would say. But yeah, they get voted in every single time. Like, you look at him, look at Maxine Waters, look at Chuck Schumer, all these characters that just are, it's just unbelievable to me that these people are voted in and have so much power and control over our country. But let's let it rip for a little bit and see where he goes.
Because immigration enforcement should be fair, it should be just, and it should be humane. So dramatic changes are necessary to the manner in which the Department of Homeland Security officers are conducting themselves before any funding bill should move forward.
Well, so if you take a look at the other areas where a lot more immigrants have been deported, when you take a look at, I think, Texas, Arizona, areas like that, I don't see any videos. I don't see any issues. I didn't hear of HSI or ICE killing any civilians in those areas. So what is the difference? Let's take a look. See, how about the fact that maybe looking at the massive amount of fraud that was happening in Minnesota, and just so happens a coincidence that when they're doing a deep dive into that, massive chaos erupts. The local PD is told to not assist the federal officials in tamping down the crowds. People end up getting hurt. People end up getting killed. And you have a big cluster F that's going on right now. You think that's a coincidence? Do you honestly think that's a coincidence? Come on, guys. Let's be serious.
Very clearly that this, and it's clear in your proposals, this is about reining in ICE and the CBP. But those agencies, as you well know, are very well funded already through the Big Beautiful Bill Act. That's what the president called it, and it passed last year. So what that means is that a shutdown would really only impact unrelated agencies, FEMA, TSA, FAA. So how does pushing for these changes and potentially not getting there help rein in an immigration crackdown?
Well, our plan is to get there on behalf of the American people. That's why we need to press forward aggressively and ensure that there are legislative changes enacted as part of any DHS spending bill, because that's the way that you change behavior.
Yeah, he totally just either he didn't understand what she was saying, or he's just speaking over her. Like she said, it's already funded, so you're just going to hurt other agencies that have nothing to do with what you're talking about. So what are you doing?
These are common sense changes. Things like mandatory body cameras. Judicial warrants should absolutely be required before ICE agents can storm private property and rip everyday Americans out of their homes in such a violent...
Is it just me, or is he missing like the upper right hand section of his teeth? That's just me? Is that just a shadow? No, let me know.
Fashion. Of course, we need to make sure that there are no masks so that ICE is conducting itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country. That shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be controversial that we are demanding that the Fourth Amendment constitutional protections are adhered to as it relates to the way in which ICE is conducting.
The no mask thing, I can get behind the no mask thing. I don't have an issue with that. I've said many times over that law enforcement, that is part of the deal. You are, there has to be, you have to have accountability when it comes to law enforcement. You have to be there has to be the ability to hold you accountable for your actions, and not just from your employer, but from the public at large. We should be able to see your face. There should be some identifying markers on you that allow people to know who you are, and allow, if any complaints have to be issued or any disciplinary action has to be issued, relatively easy way to figure out who that agent is. That's something that I think we can all get behind. And I think that, the whole notion of them being doxxed and them being targeted and stuff like that, that's been happening in law enforcement since the beginning of time. Something that we know how to deal with. We've handled it. And, you just have to let in the event that they get doxxed or targeted, we just have to deal with those people extremely aggressively. We have to, the full weight of the government needs to just stomp down, and they need to be made an example of. That's how you solve those issues. And now I get it. There's a potential of harm coming to them and their families. Unfortunately, that's one of the that's kind of the rub, right? You're taking a position with great authority, with great power. The government should do everything they can to keep you safe in doing that, but there's always risk. There's a risk reward for everything that we do in life
itself. We also need to make sure that state and local officials have the ability to conduct independent investigations so that when ICE or CBP or other officers violate the law, they can be investigated and prosecuted and held accountable for those violations of state and local law.
The problem with that is that you're just going to get into a situation where state and local that don't want them there are basically going to say that everything that they do is a violation of the law. The ICE agent jaywalked. They're subjected to a summons. They drove too fast on a roadway. It's a snowball that never ends. And I understand the accountability aspect of it. However, it's just one of those things where once you take that and give the local jurisdictions the power to do that, then it becomes a political tool.
Not being able to govern themselves with impunity, which is the case right now.
Just real quick, are there any negotiations going on about these reforms that you want?
Unfortunately, we haven't heard back from the White House or Mike Johnson or Speaker or Leader Thune in terms of the demands that we've put on the table, common sense demands on behalf of the American people. And so in our view, the ball is in the court right now of the Republicans. Either they're going to agree to dramatically reform the way in which ICE and other immigration enforcement agencies are conducting themselves so that they're behaving like every other law enforcement agency in the country, or they're making the explicit decision to shut down the Coast Guard, shut down FEMA, and shut down TSA, and that will be very unfortunate.
I want to turn to a big debate about elections. The president said this past week, that he wanted to nationalize elections at the White House and on Capitol Hill. They say that what they mean legislatively is pushing what they call the SAVE Act, which would mandate Americans show proof of citizenship, like a birth certificate, and also potentially more information about their registration to vote. Now, I understand you don't support things like a passport, for example, but requiring basic ID in order to vote is really popular. A Pew poll from a few months ago showed 83% of Americans, including 71% of your fellow Democrats, support requiring an ID to vote. Why are they wrong?
I haven't said that they're wrong. We know that states are the ones who are empowered to conduct elections, and every state should be allowed to decide the best way to proceed to ensure that there's a free and fair election. Here in New York, there are, in fact, voter identification requirements. The question is that... That's
totally false, by the way. In New York, you don't show your ID when you're voting. When he says... I mean, maybe he's talking about, they have to verify a signature. That's about it, but there's no identification that's shown. And then the two people have to agree that the signature is not what they've seen before. It doesn't make sense. But the other step in this is that, so I was listening to PBD the other day, and they had a congressman on there that was complaining, essentially saying that the SAFE Act requires a new form of identification that basically will allow people in a federal sense to vote. And this is why this seems to be what's necessary. When it comes to utilizing a California identification, this I just found out the other day, you cannot utilize a California identification in many states to further, let's say you move from California to Texas. Texas is not going to take that California ID and in order for you to get a Texas identification. Why? Because there are too many loopholes and there are too many ways around to get a California identification. You pretty much just show up and you get a California identification. A lot of illegal immigrants have California identification, whether it be driver's license or independent identification that are run by the state. So there has to be some sort of a a baseline that does not allow illegals or non-citizens to get voting rights in the country. That's it. That's it. That's the rub. That is it in a nutshell. We're looking for a system that does not allow people that should not be able to vote the ability to vote. And you can call it voter suppression. You can call it whatever the hell you want. At the end of the day, in order to take a flight, in order to buy a pack of cigarettes, in order to buy alcohol, in order to rent a car, in order to do 90% of the things that you want to do in your life, whether it be get on a, even at this point, like look at the Real ID in there. Real ID. You can't even get on a regular airplane without this new identification. So why is it that I'm able to jump through all these hoops in order to purchase a very expensive ticket to fly to another place in the country, in my own country, within my own country, but it's looked upon as extremely burdensome that a regular person can get another form of identification when it comes to voting? If they really want to vote, they will do it. If they don't really want to vote, they won't. And that's their prerogative. That is, the ball is in their court. I don't understand why this has to be a big deal. There's only one reason why this has to be a big deal, and it's because there's got to be massive amount of fraud happening in the elections.
What Republicans are trying to do is to engage in clear and blatant voter suppression. They know that if there's a free and fair election in November, they're going to lose. In fact, Republicans have been losing every single election since Donald Trump was sworn in January of last year, including most recently decisively in Texas, and of course, losing all across the country, up and down the ballot in the November off-year elections in places like New Jersey or Virginia or New York.
Yeah, and they've been losing. I mean, Virginia is a good example. They have a requirement to show your ID, and Democrats won very, very handily across the way. So why not maybe even just take that off the table and say, okay, maybe not a passport or birth certificate, but show ID?
Well, first of all, every state is empowered to be able to make the decision on their own, and we completely and totally support that. What Donald Trump wants to do is try to nationalize the election, translation, steal it, and we're not going to let it happen. We stopped them in terms of their gerrymandering efforts, where they were going to try to redraw congressional maps in red states throughout the nation, not expect Democrats to respond forcefully, and try to rig the midterms. They failed. We've stopped Donald Trump from being able to federalize the National Guard, which we believe was probably part of some toxic attempt to unleash troops on American cities all across the nation and intimidate people from voting. And we're going to stop him from nationalizing the election. This is going to be a free and fair election. It's going to be conducted like every other election, where states and localities have the ability to administer the laws.
Administer the laws? Okay, maybe that's what he was trying to say. But yeah, but the issue is when you have states and localities that are absolutely corrupt, their voter rolls have dead people on them. All this stuff is proven. They send out ballots to people that haven't lived there in years, just random addresses. You know, this has to get cleaned up. And the issue is, as of right now, most likely the midterms aren't going to go the side of the Republicans. Progressives are going to get back into power, and then this thing is going to get probably blown wide open within the next couple of years. And it's going to be unfortunate, but that's how it's looking as of right now. Let's see if he has any more left to say. Guys, if you're still here, please hit the subscribe button. That's all I need. Just subs. Thank you for all the new subs. Hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. Really appreciate it.
I do want to ask about a video that President Trump shared, a racist video, and it depicted former President Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama, as apes. About 12 hours later, the White House blamed a staffer for the post, removed it, but the president says he doesn't need to apologize because he didn't make a mistake.
He definitively needs to apologize. It was a disgusting video, and the president was rightly and appropriately and forcefully denounced by people all across the country, Democrats and even a handful of Republicans who finally showed some backbone in pushing back against the president's malignant, bottom-feeder-like behavior.
I do want to quickly ask about something else that the president wanted to do. He asked...
So, I mean, just on that, you guys will never get an apology from him, nor does anyone ever deserve one for anything that this man has done. Because when it's all said and done, you guys try to put him in jail for the rest of his life. You guys try to take away everything that he's ever worked for, everything that his family ever has. You've investigated his children, his grandchildren, everything down the line. You try to absolutely destroy and crush this man from day one. In my book, I would never apologize for anything. And I can't wait till he gets out of office so you can just start dropping bombs and you know, really letting it rip. If you guys think you're seeing him wild now, Imagine when he's no longer in office. I mean, maybe he'll still keep it together for his kids that will hopefully run in years to come. But yeah, he never needs to apologize to anyone for anything at any time. As far as I'm concerned, Obama and his cronies, they were trying to put that man in jail for the rest of his life. They were spying on him as soon as he got into office. They were trying to sabotage the campaign from day one. They were trying to sabotage his presidency from within. And you want him to apologize for a stupid meme? Get out of here.
Your counterpart in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, for the chance to rename both Dulles Airport and also Penn Station after him. And if Schumer agreed to that, then he would lift a freeze on $16 billion freeze for New York and New Jersey and the Gateway Tunnel there. What's your reaction to that?
Listen, it's another example of Donald Trump trying to force presidential graffiti down the throats of the American people.
Is this guy? He's like a robot, right? Like this isn't real. He's like a large language model. Like he's just a chatbot, right? Like he's not a real person. Like I can almost guarantee that I can see this guy sitting next to the pool, wearing the exact same suit that he's wearing right now, taking in a race. Like he's like part of the Borg or something. Like there's no way this guy is a real person. Does anyone else like have that vibe? It's so weird. Yeah, I'm kind of done with this. I'm done with him. Sorry for subjecting you to this long of a thing with Mr. Jeffries. Guys, if you're still here, please hit the subscribe button. That's all I need. If you want to follow me at X, 6283 Talk is myself on the X. I am John Soto. See you in the next video, guys. Take care.